What's up, Nerf herders? We just got done watching WandaVision episode 6, and we are going to break this bad boy down here. This show continues to get better and better. Spoilers galore. We are just going to break down and talk about this episode in full, so hopefully you've seen it. If not, go check it out. Come back and watch this video. We're going to dive right into this here. So in the theme of what this show has been doing so far with the classic sitcoms, we jump right into the 90s here with a full-blown Malcolm in the Middle introduction to this episode here, and it was fantastic.
Yeah, I love the introduction. It's got that like 90s grunge vibe to it, and it's kind of got that Malcolm in the Middle vibe as well, the 90s sitcom that kind of breaks down the fourth wall, and the kids are now starting to talk to the camera, which I love.
Yeah.
And I think this is such a cool episode because it's got that Halloween vibe to it. And it kind of brings you back to when you're a kid because, nowadays it doesn't seem as much as it used to be, but trick-or-treating was like a whole thing and everyone got dressed up and everyone was outside of their house and it was just kind of a cool vibe.
Yeah, and such a trope for, a lot of sitcom shows, but especially in the 90s, it's like every season there was the Christmas episode, the Halloween episode, the Thanksgiving episode. So they always focused on these like thematic holiday episodes. So I thought that was so perfect and a really good excuse to bring out the classic costumes and not make it seem goofy. It was a very clever way to bring the classic comic book costumes into the fold here. I thought that was awesome.
Yeah, I love the old vibes of the comic books. You got obviously Vision and Wanda, Scarlet Witch just kind of wearing these super like over the top colorful outfits. They look just completely ridiculous, but I love it. And then obviously Quicksilver, comes in with his costume, and even the twins, the two kids, you got like the little one, or the one of them wearing, a Quicksilver-esque costume, and then the other one looks like Doctor Strange. It's so cool.
Yeah, totally, dude. And I loved how they basically, we got the big drop with Evan Peters at the end of the last episode. And when they bring him in, it's just very casual. There wasn't anything that kind of played off of that big reveal. It's just, nope, he's in the house, he's hanging out, and, totally playing. Kind of, I don't know if you ever seen Grounded for Life, but
oh, for sure.
All right, the uncle, dude,
Yeah.
who's just kind of the cool uncle who's just hanging around, slouching around and everything. It's exactly what it felt like when he's just chilling on the couch with everything. But I love that he was just kind of already brought into the fold with all this, and it was just he's the cool uncle now that's just hanging around the house.
Dude, he's like the reckless uncle who just like lets the kids get away with murder, like they're shotgunning sodas and stuff. It's just so funny. It kind of reminded me of Gary Busey in Silver Bullet, dude.
Yeah,
he's
dude.
just the uncle who's just there, like letting the kid get into trouble, and just like the parents are just like, what is going on with this guy? You know what I mean? So
yeah, like can we trust him with these kids? Like, are the kids gonna be okay? And what was so dope about this, too, is, like, Vision's kind of going off on his own little thing. So you're kind of left with Wanda and, Pietro and the kids and everything. And then they flash to the outside, which I wasn't expecting. When we were watching, I'm sitting there just like, man, I was so surprised that they went out. I really felt they were going to kind of bring this one back to just a solid sitcom episode and not go outside of the hex again. And they flashed right outside of it. So there's so many moving parts going on simultaneously in this episode once again. But we get back out to the hex. We learned so much about what's going on out there. Hayward is turning out to be a total douchebag, which was kind of assumed from the beginning here. So Hayward's an interesting guy, man. I'm calling it now. I think the dude's a Skrull. I'm just putting it out there.
You're probably not wrong. I know they're definitely building that. But I think it's really cool because I think this episode to me is going to be probably the most important episode of this season. I think it unlocked a lot more doors to see where the future of the MCU goes. And I think Sword has a big part of that. I mean, I think all the players are being kind of moved into their strategic positions.
Yes, I agree, 100%. 100%. And then the kids are getting their powers, too. So it's just like everything is escalating so quick. And I thought it was really funny, too, when they were talking about Halloween. And like, this is the kids' first Halloween. It's like, well, they're 10 years old. But it's how everything's escalating and moving so fast. It's really clever dialogue.
It is.
Let's talk about the relationship that we see here with Wanda and Pietro, though, because there was a lot going on between them as this episode kind of progressed. You went from the loving brother-sister as if they were talking, and they were showing flashbacks as if they actually had grown up together and all this with these two. Right. So it's very interesting.
Yeah, so I thought it was like really cool but interesting how they, Evan Peters is Quicksilver, obviously, but then they have him in the corpse makeup where it's like when he died in Age of Ultron as the real Pietro or whatever, you know what I mean? So it was really interesting how they're playing that dynamic of like, okay, well, this is her brother, but like, why is it the X-Men version? You know?
Right. And it was, yeah, when he actually made comment to that too, when he's just like, all I remember was getting shot in the street, and then I heard you calling out to me, and he's playing off of the Aaron Taylor Johnson Quicksilver here, which is
Right.
interesting because now it begs
Yeah.
the question, you know, is he really Quicksilver from the X-Men universe, or was this a cute casting that they took advantage of because now they own the Fox characters, which we talked about, breaking down the whole thing with him showing up at the end of episode 5. But now it's almost like, okay, maybe this isn't Pietro from the X-Men universe who's crossing into this. This is just a cute casting because they could do it, and he's actually not good.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm a little bit confused with that part of it right now. I have some theories, I'll kind of deep dive into that. Because last time when we talked, I kind of threw out the theory of like, okay, well maybe this hex is just another universe, a multiverse, for everything within this is just, an alternate reality of some kind. And then, Pietro came from that alternate reality where he isn't actually dead. But then I kind of got to thinking, okay, here's some other theories. If she's having, kind of these visions of like, okay, she sees Vision as a corpse, she sees Pietro as a corpse. Is everyone who's in this hex dead? Are they all just dead and she's like projecting them as alive? Like that's one thing to kind of think about. But another was, maybe that is, still the case. I don't know because I feel like there's just too much at stake to just put them in there for like a cutesy reason.
Yeah.
And they even alluded to it with Rambo getting her blood tested, as in, hey, your molecular structure is breaking down and changing because you were in the hex. I think this is how they introduced the mutant universe
Yeah.
because now the hex is expanded, taking all these sword agents with it. And I think that's going to just keep playing into this idea that, okay, mutants exist in this hex universe. And I don't know how they're going to, I guess, explain the whole Pietro thing, but that's just my guess.
Yeah, well, and they made that mention to Monica too with the blood work, and they specifically Darcy about going in and out, so
Mm-hmm.
getting hit with that twice and how that's been impacting everything, and that was the whole concern with her going back in. So I think there's definitely something that goes with that. The Pietro thing is super weird because I was thinking for a little bit there that maybe from the X-Men universe because of whatever's happening, in this MCU, it's impacting that multiverse where the X-Men exist right now. So my thought was that maybe Quicksilver was the only one who could get through because of the speed and actually cross into this, and maybe Xavier sent him, to
Mm-hmm.
come try to see what was going on, and then we were going to see Charles Xavier at some point. So I was like, man, maybe they're going this route. But after this, especially with the last line that he drops, and he's just like, he made the mention of Vision dying twice. He's like, oh, your dead
Right.
husband dying twice, and then she just blasted him. And that was a really dark thing to kind of just come out of nowhere and drop like that. It was very out of characters to what you would expect from her brother, like what Quicksilver would
Well,
do. So that was the first red herring.
what if it's not Pietro? Like, what if someone else is pulling the strings,
Exactly. What's the other
you know?
influence in here?
Because if this is just Pietro, like as a projection in her mind, it's not real. Maybe there's an external force putting all of this in her head where she thinks she's in control. But even as we've gone deeper into the season, she's even made mention that, like, do you really think I control all of this? Do you really think I'm the one who can make everybody do everything? And then in this episode, especially as we kind of get to the far corners of this universe or this hex, people are not normal. They're stood still. There was that one really menacing scene of that woman who was hanging clothes,
Oh,
and then
that
she's
was
just kind of,
trippy.
it was so crazy, and she's like sheds a tear,
Yeah.
and it's very clear that it's like almost like she's paralyzed, right? And all these characters are paralyzed. And then you get to Agnes, and I want to kind of go back to the whole idea of costumes. This entire episode, the costumes that they're wearing are basically, to me, symbols of who they are. They're characters in the cinematic universe, they're characters in the comics. Why is Agnes wearing a witch costume?
Yeah.
Why is she, you know what I mean? Why in every episode do they kind of have her as being like the questionable one, right? Like when the dog dies, or when, she's originally working with the twins when they're infants and she's like, you want me to retake that? or when she's taking care of the kids. I think this is all a plan. I think there's some overarching force, and it may have to do with Agnes. It may have to do, she might be kind of that central theme that we're like looking for the piece of the puzzle with.
Yeah, there's a lot going on there, and there's all the talk with her being Agatha Harkness from the comics and everything, which her dressing up as the way. There's almost so much leading up to this that it's so obvious at this point that why continue to lead it on and not make the reveal? It's almost like the reveal would be underwhelming unless there's something more to that, you know? And I know there's a lot of talk about her husband, Ralph, who just keeps getting tossed around once in a while.
Right.
This show is so expertly written to where it's throwing you in loops because everything that I've thought that was going on, everything I've seen from theory videos that's going on seems to debunk, and then there's more questions, man. It's like watching Phantasm, dude. It's like you think you know what's happening, but it's all over the place still.
For sure.
Beautifully done.
I think, you know, the beautiful thing about this, and I think it's got a very Kubrick vibe to it, is that everything matters.
Yes.
Every little thing in this series has mattered. Every little thing, every little Easter egg has some connection, right?
Every piece of dialogue, dude. It's crazy.
Yeah, you have to like watch this like 4 or 5 times to like really, really get down to the bottom of some of this stuff. You know, like one thing, for example, when Vision's about to go to the outskirts of the town, the camera zooms up and you see the street signs and it says Ellis, right? Ellis Avenue. Well, I had to like do a little bit of digging, but there's actually a Warren Ellis, a person named Warren Ellis. He was the one who originally like wrote the Sword group into the X-Men comics.
Oh, interesting.
So he's the guy who brought that in, I think, in the Astonishing X-Men. So he's the one who started Sword as a, you know, a writer. But then like there's all these other like little pieces. So then, okay, if you're going to be teasing us with this idea that Sword is connected with X-Men, well, now you're teasing, you know, the mutant idea, right?
Right.
And then
which would make sense with the expansion of the Hex, like you were saying. So absorbing these people from Sword could be transforming and making them mutants. It all adds up.
You know, you could look at it this way: is within this Hex is a universe that the mutant gene, you know, can become present and overwhelming and, you know, make you a mutant, give you those powers, right?
Right.
So you know, whether or not this Hex is going to start the X-Men or if they're already in that Hex universe and we just haven't been fully, you know, explained that yet. But one other thing I did want to bring up is, like you said, language, right? So language has been super important in this series. When they're trick-or-treating, Pietro actually says to the 2 twins, he calls them demon spawn and tells them to go unleash hell. And I think that's very important because as this series,
it's literal.
Exactly. As the series has gone further, these kids have become more and more out of control. Wanda cannot control these kids. When they were children or younger children, they wanted a dog. Wanda says, "No, you can't have a dog until you're this age." Boom. They grow instantaneously. She's, you know, the whole time there's these references that she can't control these kids. Now they're showing powers. So now it's like, okay, well, did Wanda really make these kids? Why are they growing at such an exponential rate? And are these potentially future villains? Or if you're calling them demon spawn, who's the demon? Who planted that seed? And I know there is a character, you know, the devil goes by another name in the comics. But that character is very prominent in the Spider-Man universe, in the Fantastic Four universe. So you wonder if this is just setting up this new villain to kind of take the Marvel Cinematic Universe even into the multiverse of madness.
Yeah, totally, dude. And that's why, without a doubt, there's some outside influence. I mean, she's obviously controlling a lot of this, and she's strong as all hell. And because that broke the barrier at the end. There was this whole Jekyll and Hyde theory going around, but she was very much in understanding of what's happening, went into some power mode, expanded the Hex. Like, we watched her freeze time and expand the Hex. So we know that she's got a huge chunk going on, but there's definitely the influence in there because there was all of that subcontext in the first couple episodes about kids. Oh, you're not having kids? Oh, let's talk about having kids. For the children. There was all of this subcontext stuff going on, dude. So this is all about her getting these kids out because somebody wants these kids. Like, they want to take advantage of that. And I don't know if that's something Sword influenced, because we're learning more and more with Hayward that he is very interested in Vision and dissecting Vision and, creating sentient weapons and all this stuff, which I strongly feel, I'm just putting it out there. I think Sword is where Secret Invasion is going to start to come into play. I think the Skrulls, because of Rambeau bringing this whole thing up, that's where Secret Invasion is going to kind of have its roots to it. I think Sword is Nick Fury out in space at the end of Far From Home. And I think it's all the Skrulls, and they're going to infiltrate, and there's going to be a huge thing that goes on, and that's where this ties into. Especially since we know we're getting Secret Invasion as a Disney Plus show, it would make sense that they would at least bring in that storyline subtly here to advance on it then. So that's my theory that I think we're running with here.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I mean, you kind of went back a few episodes with the whole kids mentality. Everyone's talking about kids. And even back, I think it was the first or the second episode, back when they were still in like the 50s era, and they're all at that little women's meeting in the gazebo.
Yeah.
And, the one lady's like, the devil is in the details.
Yes,
and then Agnes
dude.
leans over and she's like, that's not all he's, like, okay, why are you giving these subtle hints of the devil? You know what I mean? So
yeah.
that's, maybe the Skrulls are going to have some kind of a connection with the devil character, whatever this devil character ends up being. But I think it's going to be cool. I mean, we have 3 episodes left of this season, I believe. So there's still a lot that can happen. I mean, I feel like every episode has so much content that you have to unpack that they're just not even close.
Yeah, I can't even imagine what went into making this stuff, man, because it feels like we're watching like 30 to 40 minute like mini movies, dude. It doesn't feel like you're just watching each episode. These all just feel like short films that are just spawning together. There's so much happening. This is some of the best stuff that Marvel has put out there, period. The writing in this is as good as you could possibly get to blend the sitcom world and how careful they're crafting the dialogue that matches that era of time, but it works into what the MCU is with everything. This is genius on every possible level, and I cannot wait to see what these last episodes are going to bring us, man. It's insane.
Yeah, these writers are total sitcom junkies, and I love it. They're doing a phenomenal job. I can't wait for what's going to come in the future. I think we're going to see a Doctor Strange reveal at some point because Wanda is going to be in the multiverse of madness. So they've got to bring him in. They've got to put him somewhere, even if just as a little fucking hint. Just something. Put him right in. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It'd be a cool little time, man. We got a couple episodes left, so we'll be on it. We'll be back here to talk about them. If this is your first time checking out the Nerf Herders channel, please make sure to subscribe, hit that bell to keep up with the latest. Leave some comments down below. I'd love to know what your guys' theories are. How are you enjoying the show? What's been some of your favorite stuff so far? So that's gonna wrap it up for this one, though, guys. We'll catch you all next time.